Humanity has witnessed the rise and fall of many massive industries throughout history. Since the Industrial Revolution, sectors like textiles, railways, oil, and heavy industry have all shaped the global economy in various ways. But today, the influence of these major sectors is much weaker than it used to be. In the 21st century, technology has advanced so rapidly that 80% of the world's most valuable companies are now tech companies. Yet amidst all these fluctuations, one thing has always remained constant: banking. While other industries fade from the stage of history, banking always stays relevant, powerful, and at the center of the game. However, the world of banking is often disliked and misunderstood because most people don't fully grasp what banks actually do. When someone tries to explain how banks operate, the discussion quickly drifts into conspiracy theories. Rising levels of debt make people uneasy, and many end up blaming the banks. Thoughts like they keep getting richer while the world heads toward crisis create confusion and suspicion. The 2008 global financial crisis largely stemmed from structural problems within the banking system, and household debt only made it worse. Today, the world stands on the brink of another crisis, and once again, household debt is at record high levels. So are the banks really the ones to blame? Are the wild conspiracy theories about central banks, national debt, and the monetary system actually true? What is the real role of banks in the economy? And more importantly, what are they actually doing today? The humble beginnings of banking. The banks we now see as massive institutions actually began from a very humble place: goldsmiths. Yes, you heard that right. Back then, gold was both valuable and trusted, so it functioned as money. But using gold in everyday life wasn't exactly convenient. Determining its purity was difficult, dividing it was difficult, and storing it was risky. To solve these problems, goldsmiths, the artisans of that era, began producing stamped gold coins. These stamps allowed people to easily understand the weight and value of each coin. Over time, instead of keeping their gold at home, people started entrusting it to these craftsmen. The goldsmiths stored the gold safely in their vaults and issued a receipt in return. And this is where a major historical shift occurred. These receipts eventually began circulating like gold itself. Rather than carrying heavy gold, people simply used these pieces of paper. These were the earliest forms of today's banknotes. Why did banking grow? Goldsmiths eventually realized something important. Not everyone came to reclaim their gold at the same time, so they could issue more receipts, even more than the amount of gold stored in their vaults. This idea became the foundation of modern banking. Most of the money doesn't actually exist physically, but as long as people trust the system, it continues to function. The problem is that if everyone decides to withdraw their money at once, the system collapses. This is known as a bank run, the rise of central banks. As banks grew, so did the risks. Panic at one bank could easily spread to others. To prevent this, banks joined forces and central banks were born. A central bank is essentially the bank of the banks. If too many people suddenly try to withdraw money from a bank, the central bank steps in to support it. This system worked well, but it created new issues. A single institution controlling a nation's currency caused trust problems among people. And this paved the way for conspiracy theories. Modern banking, a middleman. Today, banks are supposed to function like a boring intermediary that stores money, transfers money, turns savings into loans for businesses, keeps the economy running smoothly. But things changed over time. In the 20th century, when the dollar completely detached from gold, banks gained enormous power to create money. Now, when a bank gives you a loan, no physical money leaves a vault. Numbers simply appear on a screen, just like the goldsmith's old receipts. In reality, banks don't produce money, they produce debt. And debt forms the basis of the modern money supply. This is why total debt, government, household, and corporate, far exceeds the actual amount of money circulating. It sounds scary, but the system doesn't necessarily have to collapse. If the value of goods and services grows faster than debt, the economy expands. The real problem is that banks often direct money into non-productive areas, like real estate, instead of investments that create value. Is there a solution? According to Professor Richard Werner, the solution is smaller local banks that work closely with businesses. Germany's Volksbanken are a perfect example. Since these small banks know local enterprises well, they can make better lending decisions. The result? A more resilient economy. Final words: banking does.